All right. Welcome to Capital Culture. I'm your host, Christopher Wheeler. We have an extremely important guest today. She is a criminal defense lawyer in Toronto, Canada. Her expertise is in drug possession, drug trafficking, drug production, sexual assault, and firearm offenses. She's been practicing law for 20 years. Kimberly Schofield, I hear you're very busy these days.
Very busy. And just call me Kim, please.
Okay, thank you, Kim. So I want to unpack a lot, but let's just start with the Toronto scene in itself. I feel like I've been watching it for the last, I'd say, 6 or 7 years. If you go back to 2015, I feel like there's a pattern of specifically musicians getting harassed by the police and getting arrested with very weak charges. Would you agree with that notion?
Okay, so we have seen an increased focus on especially the Toronto rap community. Musicians, usually young racialized males. And there's a connection and a focus on certain groups and certain alleged criminal gangs. So we see, so in Toronto, we have a police force called Guns and Gangs, or the Guns and Gangs Enforcement Unit, that's designed in order to try to keep guns off the street. Whether or not they're effective on that, I guess, is a discussion for another day. But for sure, there's a focus on the Toronto music community.
Okay. Now, I want to follow up by asking this. In your history of practicing law in Canada, this has been a big topic nationally, I'd say. How often are lyrics used in Canadian court compared to, let's say, American court? Are they used quite often? Do you see quite a bit?
I don't know that I can make the Canadian-American comparison, but what I can say is increasingly they're used. Where we see the most often, although not exclusively, where we see the most often is the use in bail hearings. Okay. So what the Crown tries to do is say the lyrics portray reality. The character known as a certain stage name or street name, which is not someone's actual name, that is not a character, but that's a representative, or that's a representative of the individual. So that is truth, not fantasy. Okay. So, and what we often hear, I mean, it goes back to, I shot the sheriff, I didn't shoot the deputy. Nobody actually shot the sheriff. Okay. So they don't, so it's in rap music exclusively that I've ever seen where lyrics are used to say that they are somehow autobiographical, that it is, so the portrayal of drugs, guns, money in videos reflects the actual propensity of an individual to do those things, as opposed to that's a media persona. So this is what we hear all the time.
Okay, so it does come up quite a bit. Now, in your experience, I've seen you comment on the Toronto tow truck scene, and if you go back to, I believe it's 2017, you have an incident where a policeman is even caught bringing drugs to work. It was the cocaine incident. I think his name was Kirk Blake. Now, you see an immense amount of corruption there. Could you say that's a possibility to be leaking into the side of the police that are dealing with these criminals? Is that a possibility?
Well, let's put it this way. It's not only a few bad apples, okay? So I think that we try to portray, and the media tries to portray, that it's the exception rather than the rule. Okay. I'm not saying that the rule is that everybody is corrupt, but the system is such that it allows for corruption to take place. Okay. And that's why we're in the middle of movements calling for defunding of the police. It's because there's not the oversight. It's because people like me, individuals, are somehow tasked with holding the police to account, as opposed to some reliable check and balance system, which we just don't have. So whether that's in theft or drug planting or any other forms of corruption, we need some other source of police oversight, which we just don't have.
So you would say this is more a case of the police. You've referenced the police in a sense that they have turned. It's not they're I think you said, if I'm correct, you said the police are blind to their own action in some cases. It wouldn't be a case in this case. You'd say there's more than a few bad apples and it's a real problem.
Yeah, so it's a systemic problem.
Mhm.
And let me just go back to how it is a systemic problem. So drugs, guns, this is what a lot of this all comes down to. So guns relate to drugs, which relate to money. Okay.
Yeah.
So when you have police forces, divisions that are tasked with investigating drugs or investigating gangs, and within that unit, they encounter large amounts of money.
Okay.
And what we don't have in our system is any kind of accountable money seizure or collection system. So a police officer goes into house, there's $10,000 there. The officer takes that $10,000 back to the police station. There is zero independent accounting when that money is seized, and then it gets back to the police station. So whether all of it makes it back to the police station, whether some of it makes it back to the police station, we hear evidence repeatedly where officers just say, it's up to the integrity of the officer, just trust us. And we know where that's gotten us. So this is the problem.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of the just trust us, whether it's drugs seized, whether it's firearms seized, whether it's other forms of evidence. There seems to be just general lacking in police accountability or oversight in the system.
Fair enough. Now, I want to switch this topic just for a little bit before I get into the meat and potatoes, what everybody is waiting for. Now, you're quoted as saying, I don't think we'll ever get the same freedom back that we once had. I believe that was on the LeDrew show that you said. What do you mean by that when it comes to Canadians?
Well, I think that was specifically in reference to the encroachment with COVID-19 in our personal freedoms, and the fact that our personal freedoms were certainly curtailed, and then theoretically, in any event, that it's hard to push that back.
Okay.
So that's all that we meant. It's hard to push the state back as they encroach upon personal freedoms, because without having real accountability and systems that will get us back to personal freedom, which really has been denied us, and willingly, because we're all, of course, concerned with the pandemic. So we will see how it all unfolds within the next 6 months to a year, when we're hopefully out of this, and then maybe we're back to normal, maybe we're not. But that's something that every individual citizen has to be vigilant against, which is the encroachment of the state.
Fair enough. Now, I want to switch the pace up a little bit and want to ask you just a little bit more lighthearted question. In your years of law practice, you've been practicing law for over 20 years. Is there a trial that still stands out to you in this day that you can remember? And if so, is there a little story that goes behind that trial?
So the Tony Montana Scarface statue, for sure. That is the trial that led to the prosecution and eventual guilty plea of a number of Peel Regional police officers. So what happened there was my client was charged with drug trafficking and drug possession, and the officers decided to go to a storage locker. And once they went into the storage locker, they're in a storage locker of this alleged drug dealer, and they see a giant statue of Tony Montana Scarface with a machine gun blazing. So they take that, they take some money. And what they didn't know, which was the video cameras looked like they were broken, but they were actually working. So we got the tapes of the officers leaving with that statue.
Wow.
And yeah, so it was in
How
the
long ago
middle
was
of
this?
the trial. Sorry?
How long ago is this? Sorry, I didn't mean to.
This was about 4 years ago, and they were
Recent,
just
very recent.
very recent. So they were just prosecuted just 2 years ago, just before, and they pled guilty to a number of police corruption charges, criminally, and they received custodial sentences.
Wow. Okay. Well, that is quite a wild story. Now, I have to ask these questions, and you can do what you want with them, but journalistically, I will ask them. In your history of trying cases, has the Crown ever charged someone with accessory without a suspect?
Without a suspect or a victim? Oh, you mean without the guy that committed the murder?
Exactly. I didn't know how much I could say, so yeah.
Sure. I mean, it's not usually the case, but it's certainly theoretically possible.
Okay, fair enough. So you have seen that in your time before?
Well, I haven't.
Okay, you haven't.
But I think it's theoretically possible for them to prove accessory after the fact if the identity of the actual assailant is unknown.
Does this case kind of remind you of when Kmoney got charged in 2017 with those bogus charges and they were, after all, dropped? Does this?
It is similar, sure. Yep.
Okay, fair enough. Can you tell us how Hassan is doing? Mentally, physically, just how's he doing?
He's coping. He's coping. Okay. I can't get into the substance of his case or what's going on with it, but we're defending his case very vehemently, and he will continue to do so. That's really all I can say at this stage.
Fair enough. I did have a follow-up. I was just gonna leave it up with this. Is there anything you can say to fans of his or people that might care about him, in the sense, can you tell us anything, what is going on? I know you just said you can't really say.
This is what I can tell everybody.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. It will help me and it will help him if we slow down on the media. That's what's going to help him. So as the case unfolds and as the trial happens, then everyone can watch. It's a public system. But at least initially, when there's these interim court appearances or bail hearings, you gotta let me do my work so that I can try to get him released. The squeaky wheel gets the grease, so to speak. We don't want the grease. So we want to just cool down the attention on social media to him, because one of the things that one of the things that we do see is we see officers monitoring that, and any activity is, even though he's totally not responsible for it, is attributed to him. So we want to slow that and stop that, and then just wait, and everything will unfold, and he'll have his trial.
Well, with that, thank you so much, Kimberly Schofield. I really appreciate you sitting down with me. I'm your host, Christopher Wheeler. This has been Capital Culture, and this has been another great episode. Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure.